What is going on, people? TripleM back again with another video. It's a daily dose of football content, and today I would like to talk about a handful of things we learned about Manchester United Football Club yesterday against Omonia. Now, there was an overwhelming sense of negativity and criticism from Manchester United fans on Twitter yesterday about the performance. A lot of people felt like it was a very bad performance, and I vehemently disagree. I strongly maintain everything that I said yesterday evening. I think that was one of our best performances of the season, and we're going to talk about some of the reasons why that is. Now, first, we're going to start with why Cristiano Ronaldo was phased out of the game and why it was so difficult for him to actually make an impact. Then we're going to talk about Antony and his struggles, why he struggled to really get into the game and what Ten Hag did to change that in the second half by bringing Sancho on. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the midfield. We're going to talk a little bit about Bruno Fernandes because I didn't really talk about him in yesterday's video. So let's start, right? Obviously, Manchester United starting in a 4-3-3 setup, which is no surprise, with Casemiro being the main man in the pivot and Fred and Bruno being given that license to go forward. Obviously, the fullbacks being Delo and Malacia starting yesterday, and then a front three of Antony, Rashford, and the big boy Ronaldo. Now, Omonia played a 5-3-2 setup yesterday. Very compact, very much set on denying us space to play through the middle. And what you'll notice about yesterday's game is that majority of the game was spent in Omonia's half from minute 1 to minute 90. So Omonia were very deep, as I'll try to illustrate over here. Now, bear with me. It's my first time using a tactical board in a video, and I don't script my videos, so I'm literally just going off the dome here. So please bear with me. But let's do this, right? Ronaldo was operating in this space over here. It was very difficult for him to get into the game because he was surrounded. And what usually happens when a striker is not getting the ball in a game of football is they will drop deep to come and receive the ball and try impact the play by being a deep line forward, right? A deep line playmaker, a false nine of some sort, right? But when you're playing against Omonia and you have them penned in their half, there's no point in dropping back. There's no point in dropping back, right? We had Martinez and Lindelof for majority of the game playing the ball between themselves on the halfway line, and Casemiro operating in this region over here. We also had Delo sort of bombing forward with Antony hugging the touchline, occasionally coming in, drifting this guy out of position and allowing Delo to come over here. And Delo played a really good cross from this position, actually, thanks to Antony cutting in and drawing the defender, the wing back out of position. And it was a rare lapse in concentration from these two men over here, not providing the defensive cover because they were occupied by Bruno, also making runs. They were occupied by Casemiro, who, by the way, if you look at Casemiro's heat map, it's very interesting. He operated on that right-hand side. He dropped very deep, but there were also a couple of moments where he went forward, right? You can see it right there. You can also see that Lindelof and Martinez, this is their heat maps. Majority of it is on the halfway line or just below the halfway line, which is very interesting as well. So majority of the possession that we had yesterday was on the halfway line and in the middle of the park. Where Manchester United really struggled was the final third, right? And a big part of that is, again, we couldn't get the ball to Ronaldo because Omonia was so compact. They basically had 8 players in the middle at all times and 2 wingbacks patrolling the flanks. And what would happen in yesterday's game is because Antony was struggling to get into the game, Antony does Antony-type things. He hugs the touchline. He then draws this guy forward. Delo comes here, comes in narrow, inverted fullback. Then you've got Bruno occupying this half space, sometimes dropping deep to receive the ball, giving it to Casemiro, giving it to Fred, but most of the time operating in this half space as far as I can remember. Then you had Casemiro, who, as illustrated by the heat map earlier, was operating in this region as well. So Manchester United were creating a lot of pressure here and forcing Omonia to come this side. And what they would do when Omonia would come this side is they would have all the space out wide over here, and Rashford would have the space out here. And the ball would get played across. Rashford would have a nice run in, and in typical Rashford fashion, he'd either run himself into blind alleys, take a shot, take 2 really good shots on the edge of the box, which were saved by the keeper, get a one-on-one opportunity early on, as we all saw. Actually, he had 2 one-on-one opportunities, which he also squandered. And there were a couple of times where instead of passing on the overlap to Malacia and you know, getting a cross in for Ronaldo, who was running in, he decided to be selfish. He decided to play by himself. Malacia as well, not really timing his overlaps, not really having a good relationship with Rashford, not knowing when to be an inverted fullback and come in and provide cover in the midfield versus when to play out wide and run and create that extra option for Rashford. Also, Rashford not acknowledging the presence behind him. That was a big issue yesterday as well. But as the game went on, as the first half went on, you saw the correction of the mistake. You saw Rashford take a bit of time here when Manchester United were actually playing on this side and Omonia were defending a little bit more centrally. You saw a shift. You saw Rashford actually look to play the pass out to Malacia. You saw Malacia actually look to recycle possession and play it through the park. And Manchester United were just trying to shift side to side. They were trying to draw Omonia to one side and then play a quick switch to the winger who was open on the other side. And then if he couldn't progress the ball up quickly enough, which we struggled with yesterday, we would do the same thing. And Ammonia were very disciplined yesterday because they were very quick in their low block and their compactness to switch from side to side. They did not allow us to hit them quickly on the break whenever there was a bit of space. And when I say on the break, I'm not talking about on the counter because obviously we had most of the ball. When I say on the break, I mean when we invite pressure onto them and create space in behind or create space on the wide side. We struggled to do that yesterday because Ammonia were very, very disciplined, particularly this left back over here. I don't know what his name is. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Kitsos, but I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm going to be honest. He phased Anthony out of the game. He was really good at man marking. And what Ten Hag did to fix this, in the second half, brought on Jadon Sancho. And Jadon Sancho and Marcus Rashford, I don't know if you guys were noticed yesterday. They switched wings quite a lot. They switched wings quite a lot to throw off this wing back and Matthews. They also at times were operating on the same flank, creating a complete overload. So you had Malacia inverting inside. You had Delo completely free and by himself. So, Kitsos can't just leave him there. So he's got to come here and stretch. Then you had Casemiro staying deep in the midfield. You had Fred operating in this space. You have the situation where they're stuck between trying to stay compact and watching the right-hand side versus covering this space over here. And what you would end up having is, as a result of Sancho and Rashford operating on this side, Malacia coming here at sometimes, you would see the shift from Ammonia to this side, and it would create all the space over here. It would create all the space over here. And thanks to Casemiro being such a good ball distributor, we were able, because he shows for the ball, he was able to take the ball, either give it back to Lindelof or Martinez so that they could they can distribute the ball up to this side or give it to Bruno. The problem is we weren't quick enough to exploit this space over here. And the same thing happened the other side. Sometimes Rashford and Sancho were attacking on the right-hand flank together. Right? They were attacking on the right-hand flank together at times, and we had all the space on the other side, as I've just illustrated, and we weren't able to get the ball that side quick enough. And I think in the second half, you saw an uptick in the tempo. You saw an urgency in the way that Manchester United switched flanks. You saw that Manchester United were really trying to get themselves back into the game. What's also interesting to note, just let me try reset this quickly, is that usually with Manchester United, we have this shape. Whenever a team is playing a low block, this would usually be McTominay, but I don't actually have him on here, so whatever. This would usually be McTominay, right? Or sometimes McTominay would get forward, and this would usually be a fullback inverting in to create like a back three here, and you'd have Casemiro by himself on the halfway line, and you would have this weird formation where Manchester United are basically playing a 3-1-6. We did this against Everton. If some of you can remember, we did this very well against Everton. And what would happen is, if we were attacking down the right-hand side, Delo would bomb forward, and basically Casemiro would distribute here, and we'd create a lot of pressure. If we're attacking down the right-hand side, Malacia would bomb forward, Martinez would come like this, Lindelof would come like this, Delo would invert. And so it would be this 3-1-6 formation where we had lots of pressure on the edge of the box. You had Bruno actually staying very central, running in behind. Whoever was the other midfielder, if Bruno was the one running and keeping close to the number 9, then you would have the other midfielder running this side and creating an extra man trying to stretch the defense on the back end. You'd have Malacia in open space. Well, actually, it was Shaw against Everton, not Malacia, running into this open space over here. And then you would have the switch. You'd have the constant switch. So Everton would try cover that side, and then we would bring it back to the midfield. Do the same thing over and over again. That was something that was interesting to note in the Everton game. However, yesterday, we really struggled to do that because Ammonia weren't like Everton. Ammonia were not like Everton at all. They were very, very disciplined in the sense that their two strikers would make sure that they cut the passing lanes in the midfield. They would press and try block off these spaces, and then their midfield three would stay very compact in the middle. So they would allow us the space out wide, and they would say, "Go on, play your ball through the middle. We're not going. I mean, out wide. We're going to let you play out wide, and we're not going to do too much to stop you. We're just going to make sure that Ronaldo is phased out of the game, and we're going to try to do our best to get Bruno out of the game." Now, where Bruno really excelled yesterday is, despite the fact that it was very difficult to play through the middle, as we know, Bruno Fernandes likes to drift out wide. Oftentimes, when he doesn't have the ball, he stays central and tries to make runs that, almost asymmetrical to the number 9, whoever it is, whether it's Martial, Rashford, or Ronaldo playing up front. Bruno loves to basically be a shadow striker, basically be the shadow of the person who's playing up front. But when he's on the ball, he tends to drift out wide a lot, and he tends to be that advanced playmaker for Erik ten Hag. And as we know, Erik ten Hag at Manchester United is not playing with a traditional number 10. Bruno is not a traditional number 10. He really isn't, let's be honest. But yesterday, his unorthodox approach worked. And despite the fact that I said Bruno had a meh performance yesterday evening, I think my judgment was clouded by the fact that we were not so clinical. It was clouded by the fact that we missed so many opportunities, and Bruno himself squandered a lot of good opportunities on the edge of the box. I didn't expect him to score them, but I at least expected him to put them on target and force good saves out of Francis Ozoho. And he didn't do that yesterday. But if you ignore the shooting, because Bruno's not the striker, he's not the number 9, he's not Rashford, he's not Sancho, he's not Antony, he's not Ronaldo. He's not the one who's supposed to be finishing the ball and putting it in the back of the net. He's just the creative playmaker. If you ignore the finishing aspect and you look at the creative aspect, Bruno played 14 crosses yesterday. Yes, he only converted 4 of them, but by comparison, nobody else in the team had more crosses actually land in the box. He also played 7 key passes yesterday, created 2 really big chances, clear-cut chances, and then created several other opportunities which should have led to something. They should have led to something, and oftentimes it didn't lead to anything because of miscommunication, because of people just not really knowing where to be, also because of poor finishing, right? And that was a big issue in yesterday's game. You had players in the midfield, Casemiro, Bruno, who actually had good games, especially Casemiro. Didn't really make any glaring mistakes, as he usually has this season in a Manchester United shirt. Very calm, very composed, was a very solid midfield anger. Knew where to position himself and how to create that extra passing option and try to draw the Ammonia midfielders out of their low block. He played really well, but it's hard to acknowledge that when we are struggling to score a goal from open play in regulation time. Our only goal to give us 3 points came deep in addition time, and it was Scott McTominay off of a very scrappy opportunity, which Ammonia should have cleared, let's be honest. They gave him way too much space. They gave him way too much space in the box. They were playing so deep that they were in their 6-yard box, and McTominay was standing just outside the 6-yard box, and that's how he was able to score the goal. They should have stopped that, if we're being completely honest. If we're taking off the rose-tinted glasses, they should have stopped that, right? Like, let's be honest. But it's a weird one, because I genuinely feel like Manchester United, despite the lack of finishing and how not clinical we were, I think we actually really played well. I mean, have you ever seen a heat map this dominant in a Manchester United team since before Erik ten Hag got here? I don't remember this, apart from maybe the Van Gaal days when we used to control possession, right? This is our defenders, and look at the heat map. Look at the one on the left. That's Martinez. It's damn near looks like a midfielder. He was basically playing as a left-sided midfielder yesterday, right? Like, that's wild. That is absolutely wild. I think Ammonia only had 1. They didn't create any chances. According to SofaScore, they didn't create any chances. No big chances created at all. The only chance I think would qualify was the counter-attack where Bruno had an open pass to his captain and he didn't pass it. For whatever reason, Bruno on Ammonia's team, not our Bruno, decided he's going to try be the star of the show. I don't know why he didn't look up. Maybe it was the nerves. Maybe it was the grandiose nature of the occasion and the lack of experience in that particular situation. But for whatever reason, he just didn't pass. He decided to shoot. It was an awkward angle. Okay, not Dean Henderson. De Gea had his angles covered. He came off his line. He came off his line slightly, not like completely, right? Lindelof, even though he lacks pace, even though he was caught off guard on the halfway line, he was caught napping, he did quite well to get back to apply that little bit of pressure to say, hey man, you got to make a decision quickly, otherwise I'm closing down this gap between the two of us. You had Martinez or Deleu. I still can't remember to this day who it was, right? Like during the game, I wasn't paying attention to the extra runner, but I don't know who it was. I can't make out if it was Martinez or Deleu, but either way, it doesn't matter. You had Deleu or Martinez scrambling to try and get across, and they were not going to get there in time. All he had to do was play literally a straight ball across the box and hope for the best. I'm almost certain his captain would have at least gotten the end of that. No guarantees that he would have scored because he would have been on his weaker foot. I don't think he's left-footed and the angle would have been very strange. But he had an opportunity, right? He really did. Anyways, one of the things, as I pointed out earlier, that Erik ten Hag changed in the second half is Sancho, Rashford at times were occupying the same flank. At times they were switching flanks. He made the attack very fluid. One of the things we benefited from in that second half is that I don't think the Ammonia players were able to man Marcus as effectively because at times Bruno was operating in the half space. Rashford was dropping deep, doing link up, doing hold up. Sancho was also dropping deep at times. Delo was still a threat, trying to look for a cross out wide. It wasn't Malacia at this point. It was Luke Shaw when he came on. When Sancho was operating on this left hand side, Sancho and Shaw were very good in terms of their communication. You could see a visible improvement on this left hand side. They knew what they wanted to do. Sancho oftentimes is not somebody who hugs the touchline. He's somebody who oftentimes looks to cut in. He doesn't often have a shot. Sometimes he likes to basically just pass it back and lay it off to someone else and then make a run in behind. That's the type of player Sancho is. He relies on interplay. He relies on one-touch football. He's not somebody who takes the ball at his feet, runs at defenders, and makes something happen. He's not that type of player. He's the type of player who brings other people into play. So he'll take the ball, he'll cut in, draw someone out of position like Matthews, and then create space for the overlap. And oftentimes Luke Shaw was able to come in on the overlap because this guy over here couldn't run and cover. He was marking Bruno in the half space. Casemiro also applying pressure. Martinez, Lindelof also on the halfway line. You had moments where the ball was out here and Luke Shaw was able to spray it across into the box. You had the same thing replicated on the other side with Rashford. It was very interesting to watch. Very interesting to watch Manchester United try break down low block. Lots of people saying that we struggle to break down the low block. Again, I completely disagree because you clearly didn't watch the game. And if you did, you're very biased. And this is why I always tell people that you can't just rely on the eye test. Your eyes are biased. My eyes are biased. I see certain things because my brain wants to see certain things. You see certain things because your brain wants you to see certain things. There's certain things you don't notice because you don't like a certain player or just because you're human. You only have a pair of eyes. You can't see all 22 players at the pitch at all times. It's ridiculous. It's impossible. So obviously, no human being or very few human beings who don't have a UEFA coaching license, haven't played football in their life and are just sitting on Twitter, the vast majority of us can't just analyze a game of football just based on the eyes alone. There needs to be some analysis of the data. There needs to be some analysis of how many chances did we actually create. Are my eyes actually correct? Let me see if the data backs up what I'm seeing, or let me use the data to try interpret what I'm seeing a little bit better. But some people don't want to do that. They just look at the game from the point of view of being a football fan. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to watch football and you don't find tactical analysis that entertaining, you find it very boring, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But to claim that we struggled to break down the low block yesterday, to me, is mental because we created so many chances. We just couldn't finish our dinner. And it's not like it's because there were low quality chances. There were lots of high quality chances in their box. Our XG was sitting at above 4.0 at the end of the 90 minutes. By comparison, theirs was lower than 1.0. I think it was like 0.6 or something like that, or even lower, 0.3, actually, 0.03. So by comparison, our XG was 4.0 higher than theirs. And what that basically means is we dominated them. I know some people don't believe in XG, but that's because people don't apply XG properly. All XG means is that you have a high probability of scoring based on the shot creating actions you have. It doesn't mean it's a guarantee that those shots will go in. It just means that there's a high probability, not certainty, probability. We created a lot of good chances yesterday, but we didn't finish them. That was the issue, and people are not focusing on that. Instead, they're looking at our lack of finishing and saying, the whole game was terrible. Nobody played well. The whole team was poor. Bruno didn't play well. Casemiro didn't play well. Delo was terrible. This player was terrible. That player was terrible. There's no balance. There's no nuance. There's no saying, actually, we did play quite well. Actually, we did keep them penned in their half for 90 minutes, which we failed to do the other week, mind you. Progress, right? No, let's not acknowledge progress. Let's not acknowledge any positives. Let's just be negative and sensationalist because that's what Twitter is. That's what I saw from a lot of people yesterday. Anyways, this video is really, really long, so I'm going to end it. Leave a like on the video if you want to, comment if you want to, subscribe to the channel. That's not whether you want to or not. That's mandatory. So do it. Get down below, subscribe if you want to support the channel. And it's been your boy TripleM. Peace.